In today's video, we're going to be talking about whether sex is a need, how I came to be asking this question at all, which I think a lot of people might find this as a red flag in the first place, but I think you'll appreciate the journey that we got here. Self-reflection that I've been going through, that Alyssa's been going through as well, some of the cultural roadblocks that we keep coming into and that make a lot of sense for how we got here, as well as some of the conversations that Alyssa and I are having about these things. Hi, my name is Zach. I'm your favorite invisible labor coach and recovering man child. I'm consistently working on improving the understanding of invisible labor and relationships, especially when it comes to emotional labor, domestic labor, mental load, decision fatigue, etc. These are the things that I coach men on. If these are conversations you want to be having more of and not just in the comment section, go to the link down below, join the free community, or if you recognize that you want to be working with me and having consistent conversations with me, grab a free consult call to talk about joining the Mental Load Mastery Program. So let's talk a little bit about how we got here. So I'm 34 years old. Back when I was about 13 was the first time that I was introduced to pornography and or masturbation. I never had a formal direct conversation about these things with my parents. So all of my learning came from the internet, which we're just able to watch probably 1-minute videos that you downloaded and got from a friend, and or having conversations with my fellow 13-year-olds. I had no adult male role models talking with me. My dad never really talked about this with me all that much, and so a lot of it was discovering it on my own. Fast forward from that was about 2002, 2003 on to 2015 when I got married. I dealt with a porn addiction, masturbation addiction, and consistently used my body for dopamine rushes, for having orgasms. And that is something that I have felt a lot of shame. I'm hoping we can continue to normalize as a discussion, as you know, we talk about the male loneliness epidemic. And I think that not having direct conversations about that is a huge contributor to that. So throughout our marriage, we were separated in 2018, which I've talked openly about. And in that time, I've had a couple regressions. I've had a couple times during our separation. There have been other moments during it where I've gone back to watching porn again. It is absolutely an addiction. I would also say it's similar, but not completely equal to, I would say masturbation is also an addiction. And so I've used that as a way to procrastinate. I've used that as a way to, I think some people use food to avoid things that they don't want to do. I know that I can do that too. I would say that has been something that I've often gone to over time. And one of the things that I went on in sort of a spiritual journey last October and decided that I wanted to just try not doing it at all. I've gone through iterations of this kind of journey over the years, recognizing that I don't want to be abusing my body, just like if I were giving it food so that it could feel better, so I could give it some dopamine. I didn't want to be doing that by having orgasms. And similarly, bringing up a lot of shame here. Feels pretty vulnerable. There are a lot of moments, and I look at this journey where I've really tried to strip away the mental aspect of this and tried to not fantasize, not think about things, but rather just have it be more of a meditative experience. That has also been a challenge, and I think I've done well, and then I often have regressed. And so last October, I made a shift and I just said, you know what? I'm just going to stop touching myself and I'm going to leave my sexual activity just between Alyssa and I. And both that was, I think, a good thing. And it created a new challenge, which I had not necessarily considered. And so one of the things that I have tried is just simply not doing that at all. What we've noticed is that it helps me and Alyssa feel more connected in that when we are being physically intimate together, I'm much more with her. And it is something that I'm almost sort of saving for her. It's also challenging because I'm fighting almost 20 years of habits that I've created in my body, which is get activated, get aroused, and then I say to myself, I need to go release. And so that's been something that I've been fighting. So as we've come to both this good place where I'm not doing it compulsively and I'm saving it for her, the other problem that gets created is that now she ends up being a sort of gatekeeper of me having that release. And so that I think often creates emotional pressure on her that she feels uncomfortable with, which I totally understand. And so I think a huge part of this conversation then becomes, okay, well, is it a need for me or is it an urge? Where does this lie on the spectrum of needs and relational needs and emotional needs and physical needs within a relationship? So this question has evolved out of me consistently trying to be a better partner. It's been challenging, and I hope you guys can bear with me and help me be vulnerable. And I'm hoping this will be valuable to you too, because I'm certain that I'm not alone in this. I've considered making this video many times, and I think there's a lot of reasons that I have not, is because I'm afraid that I might have to go back in the workforce at some point, and that this is something that people might not be willing to hire me if this video exists. But at the same time, I think that will help more lives by me sharing it out loud. Next, let's talk about some of the self reflections that I've gone through with this. So, I think one of the first concepts that started to come up was correlation versus causation. So, I don't necessarily believe that sex is a need, period, end of statement. I do believe that it is a need within the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, do I need sex? Do I need physical intimacy? Which I think those are different things, but can actually be interchangeable. I do think that it is a need as the same level of need as I want to be emotionally, I need to be emotionally connected with my partner. There's plenty of couples out there that are not emotionally connected with their partner, and they're also not physically connected with their partner. Do I think it's up there with breathing and drinking water and food? No, absolutely not. One thing that I've discovered in the last 9 months since I've stopped compulsively masturbating and touching myself is that I've gone full months without that at all. And I can say for certain that for about 20 years, the longest period of time that I went without having an orgasm was a week. I remember asking myself if it was possible back when I was in my early 20s. And I've discovered that there are no physical, I've talked to my doctor even, there are no physical problems that occur when I am feeling aroused and not releasing. Those are not occurring. So I think that also brings us to this concept of blue balls that have been taught to us. I don't believe that it exists. I believe that blue balls is maybe a physical manifestation of a hurt ego at most, and at least is just a boy being a crybaby that they got aroused and that they did not get to release. So I think this concept of blue balls has been an issue for, I think, many, in that they came to believe it or they were taught it in my Neanderthal learning about sex when I was a young teenager. That's what many of us were taught from the boys that were older than us. And it's been this facade, it's been this lie that many of us have consumed and perpetuated. Saying, well, I don't want to give blue balls. I remember even hearing that from girls in college where there were moments where they wouldn't want to. And then they would say things like, well, I don't want to give you blue balls. So that is a lie that has had way too impactful of a track record, which has really just been a cover up for men's egos. I'm sure it started at some point where it was a man just trying to guilt trip a woman into being physically intimate with him, or continuing down the road when she no longer wanted to consent. So from there, so it's on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I would say. I do not believe at all that it is on the early end of the spectrum. It's not with shelter, it's not with food, it's not with water, it's not with breathing. And I know I said this earlier, is correlation versus causation. So I would say that for Alyssa and I to be thriving, if our relationship were 10 out of 10, I would say that we're probably having sex on every once or twice a week. I don't think I actually need a whole lot more than that. Once or twice a week is probably pretty great. I think based on what our current libidos look like. I'm sure that if we were increasing to that amount, that there's a much higher likelihood that the total amount would increase. Our libidos might increase even more so, and they might exponentially increase off that. But furthermore, I don't believe, I was thinking about this the other day, is Alyssa said to me, I don't want to have sex with you if I'm just pleasuring you. And I've really agreed with that. I thought to myself, I wouldn't want her to be physically intimate in that specific way of having intercourse if she weren't into it. Because I don't want her to ever feel like she's being violated or feel like she's not in it and she's just doing something for me. especially is where I think physical intimacy versus intercourse, or other versions of that, like oral sex, I think that can absolutely be where we can look at the separation of those definitions. So coming back to correlation, not causation, I think that if Alyssa and I were at a 10 out of 10, I don't think that we'd be having sex like that because we're trying to have sex that much. It is much more so because we're emotionally connected in a consistent way. We're on the same page with each other. Things are going well. We're not getting into conflict with each other, and we're not hurting each other on a consistent basis. We're sharing our emotions when they come up quickly. And so we're feeling consistently well slept, well fed, emotionally heard, and on the same page. And I think sex would evolve out of that. So I think when a lot of those other needs are being met, it is a correlative experience that I think we would be having significantly more sex. I think a really great example was Mother's Day this year. So I felt like I was on top of my game. She was probably a default parent, maybe 10 minutes of the whole day. I was the default parent the whole day. Her needs were getting met. All of our needs were getting met. At the end of the day, I put our child down so that she could continue to relax and not be default. And that was a day that I would not have anticipated that we would have had physical intimacy, because this comes to one of our sort of cultural roadblocks, is that I think so many men, probably including myself, is that we see sex as a thing for men. And I know that that is something that I've had to unlearn, especially through my pornography consumption over the years. I think the way that it's marketed to us in a variety of different ways, realizing that when I'm thinking about sex and thinking of it as something that's for me versus for her or for both of us, the moment that I realized, wow, that's crazy. We had sex on Mother's Day, but not Father's Day necessarily, was because that is something for her too. She wanted to have it. And she also wanted to have it because we are emotionally connected all day, and she wasn't tired at all because I had been doing the work all day. Versus Father's Day, she does a bit more of the default parenting to let me relax. And she's much more tired. She's probably a little bit less emotionally connected with me throughout the day because she's maybe been doing other sorts of services and contributions to me and to us throughout the day. So I think when we look at sex as a correlation, not a causation, and it's a physical manifestation of emotional safety, it's a physical manifestation of us feeling connected together. That always feels like a strong reminder of that the sex isn't the thing that actually needs to be worked on, if that makes sense. What does need to be worked on is our emotional capacity, our listening, our ability to understand what's going on for our partner. I think especially for a lot of men to be able to better understand and appreciate and hear and validate the emotions that our partners are experiencing. The last thing that I want to add to this, talking about cultural roadblocks that we have, is I want to just set a reminder. So it's 2025 right now. I was a 3-year old when the last states in our country, North Carolina and Oklahoma, finally made laws saying that just because someone is your spouse doesn't mean you can't rape them. So marital rape was not a fully criminalized thing in the entire country until 1993. So if you're in Oklahoma and your wife said, he raped me in 1992, that husband could say, well, I'm her husband, like rape. That was still a thing when I was 2 and 3 years old. So just a reminder that the world that we live in currently is still in a place where it is seen as a need, it is seen as the moment that this person married me till death do us part also meant that this is a consistent note of consent that we can and or will have sex. So the point I'm trying to make here is that this is a huge cultural shift that we're still not that far away from having to unlearn. So I think the reason that I see this comment come up so much, this pushback on so many men, is like not having enough sex, and like I recognize that I'm still doing that unlearning for myself, is that we're still in a world where so many women have felt unsafe in their marriages. It could have happened with my parents. So just knowing that it was not that long ago that it was seen by the law as a requirement and an expectation that sex was happening and that he had consent the moment that the ring was on, more so than every single individual case. Like the world that we're in right now. So I want to come to sort of last thing is like the conversations that we're having about it now. So the first thing I think is we're pretty good at being reflective and having direct conversations. There's a lot of moments when noticed over time that I've been manipulative. So there have been a lot of times where I will go above and beyond to do chores to manage our toddler because I think she might be in the mood that night. And or there's a better chance that she will be a yes later if I'm putting in more effort now rather than me just putting in the effort because I see that's the effort that needs to be done in the house. So we've both acknowledged that that doesn't work because one, I end up going into the bedroom. She can feel that energy. She can feel the manipulation. She might not be able to put her finger on it. She might not be able to speak it or like cut out, but she can feel it. She feels like there's something not quite right about my demeanor. I think even a lot of times I wasn't, this might sound absurd, I had a hard time even articulating that that's kind of what's happening. So that's been one thing, is we've been a lot more direct about talking about physical intimacy and like our needs are. Brings me to one of the piece of coaching that I've gotten, I've liked over the last couple months is if you've seen my other videos, I often talk about the emotion wheel and talking directly about some of your core emotions, talking about shame, guilt, fear, anger, lonely, sadness, hurt, and joy. One of the other ones that kind of kept was sexual joy. So when there's a moment where Alyssa and I are hugging, where we're being intimate, where just touching each other, we're cuddling, whatever it is. Also, much as I might say, "Ooh, I felt hurt from that," or "I'm feeling some anger from that," also saying, "Hey, I'm feeling some sexual joy right now." And I think we're still learning how to navigate the conversation that happens after that. Oftentimes, I know that when Alyssa says, "I felt hurt that you did that thing," me just being able to say, yeah, hear you're hurt, rather than me getting defensive, rather than me feeling like I need to do something or defend it, able to say, got it, hear that. I think similarly, the connection codes training, one of the things they talk about is asking, well, what do you need? So if someone's saying, I feel hurt, oh yeah, tell me a little bit more, what's happening for you? And then the ideal question to ask is, well, what do you need? We haven't felt comfortable doing, because this is where we're kind of not knowing what the need is. If I'm feeling sexual joy and she were to ask, well, what do you need? I think one, she's scared of me saying that I need sex. Also, don't know what I need in a lot of those moments. So consistently having direct conversations, sharing with her like when I am feeling sexual joy, and or her sharing with me when she's feeling sexual joy, helps us be a little bit more direct, helps us feel more emotionally connected. Those are conversations that are improving. They're not perfect around our house. Those have definitely improved. Another thing that's came up in the last 9 months, since had a couple of self intimacy dates where it's not me, aroused and going into the bathroom and going to have an orgasm, but instead scheduling it and saying, I'm going to go kind of be myself. Maybe it's been a couple weeks. I haven't had sex and I'm feeling desire to be with myself. I'm feeling like something's not there. We'll kind of date with myself and I'll go into the bedroom. I'll take my time. It'll be a meditative process. I'll put on music even. Feels so weird. It is so anti what I've been doing the previous 20 years. It is worth a try, and it's really interesting arousing myself. It's really interesting meditative, being really in my body, touch myself in slow, sensual, intimate ways that I have not historically. Imagine, incel teenager, multiple times a day, like, has been a reality for a lot of my time, especially in my younger years before being married. Um, I've had a lot of terrible physical habits around the way I am intimate with myself, and so I've been also working on improving that. I would say the last thing is talking about what physical intimacy is and or can be. Doesn't always mean it has to be intercourse. One thing that I've found, there have been a couple times where I shared my sexual joy and started using her hands to continue arousing me. And then that's just led to us not having intercourse, but helping me achieve orgasm with her hands. And when I was in high school, I might have said, that's stupid. That's gay. That's absurd. Like, why would you be okay with that? My 30s, having a kid, that feels extremely physically intimate. And I love and appreciate that when she is putting energy towards my sexual desires. So that was a surprising one, is that I did not think I would appreciate having her touch me that way that wasn't intercourse. And similarly, there have been moments when 2, 3 weeks, I think 2 spans where we've gone almost a month where without physical intimacy. Um, we're kind of hot and heavy and we're very cuddly, kind of prematurely before we had really started. Um, Also, would not have thought that that was a physically, I'm feeling so much shame in saying this aloud on camera right now, but again, I think this is valuable and I hope that you're getting something out of this conversation. I hope you don't bash me for it. I'm sure there's going to be at least one comment in the comment section calling me a simp. I'm okay with that because I know that they probably just not ready for this conversation. But just thinking about that moment there, I remember thinking how intimate it still felt with her. Asking her later, like, what was that like for you? Like, did it feel? And I think part of it was like surprising for me that she was very, very physical intimate, oftentimes like kind of back if we're spooning. I didn't see that coming. It was not the time of the month that is ideal for having intercourse. And ended up taking it as a compliment, saying like, I did not think that I could have that sort of impact or influence on you without skin to skin. So discovering what physical intimacy does and or can look like, I think is a really important discovery to have with your partner. It may not look like intercourse the way that we've been taught in porn growing up, the way that we've been taught from pop culture, from movies, from TV shows. I think these are the scary conversations that we don't want to have, that is going to take us giving up some of our ego that we've been taught is tied to our masculinity over the years. Even scary for me making this video, but I really do think that it will make a big impact on a couple people are wondering why things feel so wrong where they're at physically, intimately in their relationship. So I hope that this gives you some frameworks, gives you some ideas, some considerations for how to look at your own sexuality, especially for the guys that are maybe struggling with this. If sex is a need or feels like a need, I think there are way too many men that are unwilling or too much fear around having this conversation. And I really hope that it makes a difference. Last thing I'll say, if this is something you want to talk about more, you want to improve the conversations you're having, if this felt really valuable to you, you want to be doing more work on this, more self-reflection, and a community of men that are working on things like this and trying to improve the relationships, grab a free consult call with me. Link is down below. If you want to have more, if you want to just jump into the community, you don't want to have a conversation, but you want to just dive right in, mental load mastery community. If you want more than just a comment section, jump into the mental load basics community. A bunch of men that are working on similar things, but quite as intimately. Hope this is valuable. If you found this valuable, or this is, you came in from over in Instagram, which is my main platform right now, please hit subscribe. I'm working on building my YouTube content over here as well, as I know many of you are used to my very short form things on Instagram. I'm working on delivering more deeper value things here on YouTube. Thank you for watching. See you next time.